When I was 12 years old, my family lived in a high ranch house split into 2 floors. As the oldest child and the only boy, I had the privilege of claiming the bedroom downstairs. The room was large, separated from the rest of the family, and in many ways it felt like my own private domain. It was my little world with a full-sized bed, a small TV, and space to sprawl out. But that isolation, which I initially treasured, would soon become my greatest fear. It started in the heat of the summer. My parents kept the upstairs bedrooms, while my younger sisters, aged 5 and 8, shared rooms upstairs as well. I was often left alone in my little corner downstairs at night, separated by a flight of creaky wooden stairs. At first, the nights were like any other. The rhythmic hum of my fan became my companion as it helped combat the summer heat. But soon, strange things began to disrupt my nights. For 3 consecutive nights, I woke up in the middle of the night. No loud noises, no sudden movements, just an unshakable feeling that something was wrong. I would glance around the room, trying to understand why I felt so unsettled. The fan hummed steadily, the shadows stayed still, but I could never shake the unease that gripped me. On the 3rd night, thirst forced me out of bed. As I filled my glass of water in the bathroom just outside my room, I heard something, a faint rustling sound. It wasn't loud, but it was enough to make me freeze. I turned off the faucet and strained my ears. The sound stopped. My heartbeat quickened, but I convinced myself it was nothing. Still, when I returned to my room, the shadows felt heavier, more oppressive. I couldn't shake the feeling that something or someone was watching me. I decided to retreat to the couch upstairs, seeking solace in the familiarity of the living room. The cool air from the vent above helped me fall asleep eventually, but the unease hadn't truly left. That night, I was startled awake again, this time by the sound of rummaging. My sleepy eyes caught the faint glow of the refrigerator light from the kitchen, but the kitchen was out of my line of sight from the couch. Someone or something was moving about. The clinking of jars and the soft thud of the fridge door shutting sent chills down my spine. I sat up, frozen with uncertainty. Who was in the house? My sisters were sound sleepers and my parents had gone to bed hours earlier. The faint sound of footsteps descended toward my room. I didn't have the courage to follow. The next morning, my mom entered my room while folding laundry and wrinkled her nose in disgust. "What's that smell in here? You need to clean up," she said, her voice tinged with annoyance. I sniffed the air but smelled nothing. I brushed off her comment, dismissing it as an overreaction. That night, my dad turned on the central air conditioning, offering a reprieve from the summer heat. The fan was off in my room, replaced by the low hum of air blowing through the ceiling vents. I played video games until my eyelids grew heavy, then turned off the console and climbed into bed, settling into my usual sleeping position on my side. Sometime later, I woke up. This time, it wasn't the heat or the sound of footsteps. It was breathing, deep, rhythmic, but distinctly not my own. We eventually invested in a home security system, complete with motion-activated cameras, floodlights, and even a doorbell camera. The sense of security it brought was worth every penny. Every time we think about that man, we're reminded of how lucky we were that nothing worse happened that night. It's scary to think what could have happened if he had managed to get inside. Our neighbors were very supportive during that time, keeping an eye out and even patrolling the street occasionally. We learned just how important a close-knit community can be in situations like that. While life has mostly gone back to normal, that experience taught us to never let our guard down. To this day, we're always cautious, especially at night. And while we've since built a happy life in our home, that man's face and his words still haunt us sometimes. We hope we never have to deal with anything like that again. But one thing is for sure, we're much more prepared now. After the initial incidents, things started to settle down. But every now and then, we'd catch fleeting shadows near the edge of the property, or hear faint noises in the backyard late at night. At first, we chalked it up to paranoia. Maybe the fear from those nights was playing tricks on our minds. But one evening, while Morgan was watering the plants in the backyard, she found something unsettling. Hidden behind some thick bushes at the far edge of our property, she stumbled upon a pile of cigarette butts, a few empty beer cans, and a tattered blanket. It was like someone had been camping there watching us. We called the police immediately, and they came to inspect the area. Unfortunately, there wasn't much they could do without catching someone in the act. The officers suggested cutting back the bushes and adding more lights to the yard, which we did the following weekend. We also moved some furniture around inside the house, positioning the couch and chairs so we could see outside more easily. But that didn't stop the growing feeling that someone was still out there. One night, as I was taking out the trash, I thought I saw someone standing by the tree line. It was just for a second, but it was enough to freeze me in place. The figure disappeared before I could get a good look. That night, Morgan and I decided to start keeping a bat by the back door just in case. The uneasiness in the house grew. Morgan started insisting that we sleep with a light on in the hallway, and every little noise at night had us on edge. The once peaceful home we had dreamed of was starting to feel more like a prison. The breaking point came a few weeks later. It was around midnight, and we were both fast asleep when we were startled awake by a loud banging sound. It wasn't coming from the backyard this time. It was at the front door. I grabbed the bat from the corner of the room and cautiously approached the door, peeking through the peephole. There he was, the man from before, standing on our porch, swaying slightly as if he were drunk. He was muttering to himself, and his hands were stuffed into the pockets of his coat. My heart pounded as I backed away from the door and called 911, whispering to the operator what was happening. Morgan was in the bedroom, barricading the door with a chair, too terrified to move. Before the police arrived, the man began yelling, slamming his fists against the door. "You can't hide forever!" he screamed. His voice was hoarse, filled with rage and something darker that I couldn't place. I yelled back that the police were on their way, hoping to scare him off, but he didn't move. Instead, he started circling the house, banging on the windows and trying to find a way in. The police arrived just as he was attempting to pry open one of the back windows. 2 officers tackled him to the ground, while another approached the house to check on us. It was finally over. The man was arrested, and this time there was enough evidence for charges to be pressed. We later learned that he had a history of violent behavior and had been in and out of jail for years. Knowing that he wouldn't be able to return anytime soon brought some relief, but the fear didn't disappear overnight. We installed even more security features around the house and started attending a local self-defense class together, determined to never feel that helpless again. Years later, Morgan and I sometimes talk about those nights. We've made our home feel safe again, but the memory of that man's face still lingers. It's a constant reminder that danger can be closer than you think, and that sometimes the scariest monsters aren't the ones hiding under the bed. After everything settled, there was one night I lay in bed, unable to sleep. My mind wandered back to a memory from my childhood, something I hadn't thought about in years. I was 8, and I used to have this recurring fear that someone was hiding under my bed. Every night I'd check, peeking underneath with my flashlight, heart racing. One evening, I was so sure I saw a pair of eyes staring back at me. I screamed, and my dad came running in. He checked, and of course found nothing but a stray sock. But what I remember most was what he said: "The monsters can't get you if you don't let them scare you." It didn't make much sense to me then, but lying there as an adult, I finally understood. Fear gives power to the things that haunt us, whether they're real or imagined. That memory gave me a strange sense of peace, Morgan and I had faced our fears head-on, and though we were shaken, we didn't let them break us. It reminded me that courage isn't about never being afraid, it's about standing up when you are.